and welcome to this week's episode of Sunday Night Live, your favorite automotive show where we tackle the tough issues. We bring on the experts to share with us what they know and what they do to help improve the customer experience at your store. The more everybody knows, the better the experience. And if I have a good experience at Mike's shop, I'm going to expect a good experience at Joe's shop. And then the automotive world is a happy place, and we get the respect that we deserve and for so many years haven't really gotten. So we did a show, Mike and I, a few weeks ago, and we got through some of the topics that we wanted to cover. However, we didn't get the chance to get through all of them. And then it was suggested that we bring on this champion guy named Joe Clementi, hashtag Coach Joe.
No limits, baby.
So you asked, we listened. So this evening, welcome to the show, Mr. Mike Vogel, hashtag the Fixed Ops Coach, and Mr. Joe Clementi, hashtag Coach Joe. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Great to see you again, Paul.
Thanks for having us on, Paul.
All right. For the few folks that might not know who you guys are, why don't you give us a short bio, not quite back to fifth grade, but your experience in the automotive business, what moves you and what brought you to this point, and then we'll jump in.
Go ahead, Joe. I'll let you take that one.
I was going to let you go first, Mike. Go ahead.
All right. So my name is Mike Vogel, and I've been in the business for over 40 years, 30 years in fixed ops leadership roles. Started out as a used car porter back in 1976 in beautiful New York City. Moved to Southern California in 1986 and worked for mostly Nissan and Toyota dealerships, and just love the business, and I'm passionate about it through and through. Great to be here.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Awesome. Joe Clementi, I have nearly 30 years of automotive experience dating back to the late 80s. Worked my way through many positions in the automotive world. A graduate of the Dealer Academy, NEDA Dealer Academy, managing partner of a Honda dealership for a very, very long time, mostly Honda Ford dealerships. The last 9 years I've been with a company called Mobility Works, the largest adaptive community provider of wheelchair accessible vehicles in the country. And my role is the Vice President of Operations for all 95 stores across the country. And my passion is people, processes, and development. That's where my passion lies.
Well, welcome, gentlemen. And you'll notice that anytime there's that trilogy, the people part always comes first. Because without the people, we really have nothing. So I want to get to a couple of comments. First one to tune in is Ed Chipolowski. Hello, and love learning more about the automotive industry. I believe Ed comes from the trucking industry, and that's another fascinating industry in itself. I've learned a lot from the guys at ATA, Auto Transport Intel, and Cars on the Move. So welcome, Ed. Been a great supporter of the show. And Russell B. Hill, cannot wait for this one. 3 amazing guys here. Wow, they included me this time. I feel honored, man. I thought it was going to be the Mike Vogel show.
We're guests.
You're a brat.
Russell B. Hill says the experts indeed. And Jerry Davis, our SDL brother, along with Russell, of course. 2 great legends in the business. Paul, you are pretty good as well. All right, I got knocked out again. Mike Weldon from the West Coast. A powerhouse tonight. Good evening, all from the West Coast. Russell B. Hill says, good evening, Michael. Dan Bears, happy Sunday, everyone. Happy Sunday indeed. So welcome to the show. Last time we were on, Mike and I, we talked about why the service departments still have poor retention. We talked about why the numbers shouldn't be your number one focus. It's a focus, but it shouldn't be the number one focus because there are so many other things that make up the customer experience, which in turn turns into correcting all of the other ills. And then we also talked about why customer satisfaction doesn't always lead to customer retention and why customer advocacy should be the goal. Your best advertising has always been word of mouth. Your happy customers pulling in their friends, family members, co-workers, people to go to church with, anybody and everybody they know, they're singing your praises because you've done right by them and they trust you. We also talked about why Mike despises ELR and hours per RO. And we touched on why outside coaches / trainers should be focusing on department leaders so they become the head coach / head cheerleader of their department. So we got a lot covered last time, but there's still so much more. And I want to kick it off with tires, right? Why do we need to be in the tire business? That's a question that a lot of places ask. And I cannot tell you the number of stores I've walked into and in meetings with fixed ops managers and fixed ops directors, I can't tell you how many of them say, oh, there's no profit in tires, or, oh, they take up so much room, and, oh, there's a town fair tire right down the road from me. We can't compete with them. And all the other legitimate reasons why they aren't or don't want to be in the tire business. But we're here to challenge that thinking, because we think you need to be in the tire business. And we're going to kick this around. Why don't we start with Joe Clementi, since he's fresh on our show here from the last time, and we'll kick it around.
Yeah, thanks. I look at this a little bit differently. So when we think about tires, they're like the mechanical link to your customer's independence. So when everyone's trying to grab your attention, our independent dealers and the independent body shops and the independent tire places are trying to grab your customer's attention, this is the primary reason why we want to keep that connection. Because as soon as that client goes for the tires, then the technician says, well, yeah, I can fix this for you. I can fix this for you. And then the only thing that you're left with as a dealer is you become a warranty house. When there's a failure and it's under warranty, I'll come see you. Otherwise, we now have our maintenance done at Jiffy Lube or Johnny's Tires or Joe's Garage, because that technician grabbed their attention and pulled them away from you. That's why tires is the beginning point. That's the foundation to keeping that client. We look at it as like it's our lifetime ownership. This is how we create lifetime ownership. It's not about profitability, because it's more than a bottom line number, right? It's all about the client and the retention. That's my 2 cents.
Mike Vogel.
So I think where we get it wrong is right from the beginning. So typically, like a lot of things in a service department, too many service departments don't talk about things until the car needs it. And the reality is, there's a famous expression out there. I didn't create it, but it's called selling the green. And it needs to start on the first visit. So if you're going to build trust with your customers, you need to talk about the tires on the very first visit. Same thing with brakes. So that as they start to wear down and they get into the yellow zone, and we need to prep them for it, because let's face it, the tires are a major expense on a repair, probably one of the first or the first major expense that they're going to have in their car ownership. So if you don't start from day one building that trust and explaining the process of how their tires are wearing, how their brakes are wearing, to the point where they need tires, you're behind the 8 ball and you haven't earned that trust to sell it to them. Next thing is the industry out there, and everybody watching probably knows all the numbers because we've talked about it, we've thrown them around, but the chances, 70% of the customers are going to buy from the first person that recommends tires to them. You sold them the car. They're servicing their vehicle with you. Why would you not be talking about tires with it? Because it's no gross? That's not a valid excuse. It's not a valid excuse, because 70% of those customers are going to defect if you don't sell them the tires. Okay, if you're averaging $200 gross profit for each ticket and the customer is visiting you, let's say twice a year, that's $400 in gross profit every year that's gone. So would you rather make low gross on the tires and retain them for 2, 3, 4, or 5 years? Or would you rather let them walk because of no gross or low gross and be done with them? I mean, it's just, it makes zero sense. And I circle back to when we did a poor job back in the 80s and 90s with oil changes and all the independent fast service oil changes opened up. Look at what happened. We're still playing catch up to today with those independent oil change places. And unless we get, really good quick with tires, we're going to be in a world of hurt because electric vehicles are around the corner and there's no more oil changes. Now what?
Yeah. I want to get to a couple of comments and I want to jump in on this one because tires is one of my favorite topics. All right. We have Russell B. Hill, LOL, that's something, but I don't remember what that was. Michael Dean Offmuth, hello guys. Michael Barrich, hashtag raise the bar. Coach versus coach sharing the knowledge drops. Win the tire battle in your district, region, and nation. Winning matters. Absolutely. And Jerry Davis, the fish rots from the head. If you don't have the buy-in of the leaders, then there would be no amount of trainers you could send to a dealership. Nothing will change. Tires are totally about retention and the ability to upsell. Alignments, brakes, suspension, parts. Whoa, my phone just dropped.
Yeah, well said.
Robert Allen Carvel, hello, welcome to Paul's SNL from Atlanta, Georgia. And Russell B. Hill tires are one of the very important missing links that are a part of curbing the bleeding. And Michael Barrett says, Coach Joe is muffled from my perspective. Yes, we've had that conversation. There's some techno glitch going on. Hopefully you can hear most of what he says. I know I can, but my friend David Kokenauer says technology works 70% of the time. 30% of the time, you just have to kind of grin and bear it or deal with it. So yes, we are aware of the muffled issue. We've tried the settings, and for some reason that didn't change it. So hopefully enough comes through so we can all gain from what hashtag Coach Joe is going to share with us. Let's see here. Jerry Davis says, saying you don't do tires would be the same as saying you don't do oil changes. Indeed. Russell Hill agrees with the muffled thing. And Robert Allen Carvel says, when you pull tires off, it leads to other parts and labor sales. Be a one-stop shop. Russell says, right on, Mike, it makes no sense at all. And Ed Chipolowski, will dealers do price match with non-OEM dealers?
The smart ones do.
The smart ones do.
The smart ones do. I mean, most of the guys that get it, that are successful in the tire business, do usually offer 30-day price matches or price guarantees to build that confidence level, to show the value in doing business with them. So yes, absolutely.
Now, here's how I look at tires. And agreed, this is a conversation that is started from the first contact. Before they've even purchased the car, you want to not only sell yourself and the vehicle, but you want to sell the dealership and its virtues. Okay, nobody's equipped like the dealership, whether it be from a facility standpoint, training, and quality parts. Nobody is equipped to take care of the customer like a dealership is. And there are certain things in life that are necessities and will go on until people die or stop driving. You always need to live somewhere. You always need to eat something. And you always need a barber. Even though Mike and I don't go to barbers per se, I still have to buy the razors, and I have to do it periodically, more so in the summertime, because it seems that when I get more tanning, the white hairs show more, which is a real bummer because then I have to shave more often. During winter months, I can go a few more extra days without having to worry about it. But in any event, so you want to have that conversation up front. So the customer understands they're not just there to buy a car. They're forming a relationship with the dealership, and we're going to look out for your best interest every step of the way. you explain, you educate, right? They're not going to automotive school, but we educate them as to what they may encounter through the life cycle of ownership. And that tire conversation, that selling the green, Mike and I didn't make that up, Joe didn't make it up, but it is valuable to nobody's business. Because when you explain and educate how tires work, and you have that conversation about added stopping distance, and you actually walk them through it. I've shared that video before, where how many more feet it takes to stop based on how thick the tire tread is. That's something people care about because it affects the performance and safety of their vehicles, and it affects their lives. So if I come in at 6,000 miles with my Subaru for the first time, I'm not going to need tires. But guess what? If I do a proper walk around, and I educate the customer right from minute one, whether it's the old school lanyard with the thing you drop in the tire, or it's one of these newfangled measuring tools that you drive over that not only tells you tread depth, but also wear patterns and whether or not your alignment's out. Okay, that's a conversation. You sell the green. Look, when the tires were new, this is where it was, and this is how long it took you to stop. Now, 6,000 miles later, this is what your tire tread depth is, and this is how the wear is. That indicates maybe how you're driving. That's a conversation you can have to coach them on maybe some better driving habits. But you let them know everything is fine. You can typically expect X amount of mileage out of the tire. So by the time that car needs tires, you've now had this conversation several times. So they know it's coming. They're prepared for it. So when you show them why they need it, whether it's a nifty color printout or getting down on one knee and actually putting their finger on that wear indicator bar, they're more inclined to buy it. You've earned that trust. And look, nobody wants to have 40 different people that they go to for different things. Nobody. So if I feel comfortable coming to your shop, okay, so on my Subaru, I take my Legacy to Dan Perkins, Mark Mezzador, the service manager. He takes great care of me. Whatever that car needs, I'm going to do it. Why? Because I trust them, and they make it easy for me to do business with them. So by selling the green and having the conversation, we're in the tire business. When, yeah, you only make a couple $100 on the tires, but how many people get an alignment when they buy tires? That's 100% profit right there on the alignment. And when the tires are off, it leads to brakes, right? It leads to brakes and other services. Let's face it, there's not a lot to service on cars today, and it's going to be even less going forward. So why would you give that up? And it's funny that Mike threw out that 70% number, because that also happens to coincide with the 70% of customers that don't come back to the dealer for service. Once they're gone, they're gone. I don't care how much money you spend on lost soul campaigns, they're lost for a reason. They're not coming back. So you got to be proactive and I'd
like to add to that for the listeners to consider something that I did at probably the last 7 or 8 years working in dealerships was I offered customers lifetime tire rotations for the life of the tires if they purchased the 4 tires there as a value add. Plus the manufacturer had 2 years road hazard warranty. So what we used to explain to a customer is, okay, the price is $500 for those tires, but I'm giving you $200 worth of value adds that this guy down the street is not doing. I did it twofold for the value to the customer, but more importantly, now I'm guaranteed to get that customer back every 5,000 miles, get a multi-point inspection done, and look for opportunities. And we spent a lot of money, sorry, Russell Hill, on marketing to get customers in the drive when, if you have an express technician pull the tires off, or any technician for that matter, and you're paying them $3.10 and they're making $30 an hour, it's costing you $9. To me, to get that customer in my drive every 5,000 miles because they're getting a free tire rotation is worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
that's a cycle of ownership, right? I mean, that is connecting the client with the dealer. It's
Well,
connecting that lifetime owner with you. It's just a band-aid or a temporary, but leads to long-term.
and that's what we haven't even touched on yet either, besides the retention in the service department and the future opportunities and the future gross profit. What about the fact that if you're retaining them in your service department, selling them their next car? Keep that life cycle going like you just brought up, Joe.
Yep. It's about
All
lifetime.
things. So going back to the original thing, no gross or low gross. Yeah, today's visit, maybe. But what about the future? What does the future look like when you retain that customer? That's the big picture. You got to always look big picture.
Big picture owner. Yep. Ownership.
We're in it for the long haul. We have to look at big picture. I want to get to a couple of comments here. Let's see. So we addressed Ed's comment about the tire price match. A lot of the sharp ones do that. Phil Flores, so many dealers want to charge for rotations yet offer free MPIs. Consider those rotations to be a impromptu the MPI. Tire dealers will move customer offering the free rotations, display what you offer. Yeah, we cannot assume that people know what we do. We can't, because 7 out of 10 customers apparently don't think we're in the repair business because they go elsewhere for that. So absolutely, great point.
To Phil's point, Phil was my dealer tire rep back in the days when I was running a dealer group. We took over a store that was in a very low income area. And all we heard from everybody when we started in there was, from the service advisors to the BDC to the technicians, oh, these customers don't have money to buy tires. Well, they have to buy them somewhere. Right. So we started working on a plan, and we put together the 30-day price guarantee. We put together the free tire rotations, and it came with the 2-year road hazard. And we got serious about the tire business. We put a dedicated person on the drive to measure tires. And that store, even though we didn't make it to number 1, in 12 months took them from 48th in the region to 14th in the region in tire purchases.
That's huge.
That's huge. Huge numbers.
So how many more customers do we just guarantee future business from? It works. It 100% works.
Yeah. And to the point about having this conversation from minute 1, I don't know how many of you have seen this, but you have to, when the customer comes in to look at a car, you need to have the conversation. And after they've purchased the car, I'm going to play a short video clip. This is an interview I did with a dealer in Aruba. And these guys get it. So listen to how they set the stage. We know our service advisors are busy. The customer needs to know the service advisors are busy, and they need to be properly channeled to do servicing that's going to best serve themselves first and help the dealer second. This is what Ruben has to say.
Technicians from all over the world. We got technicians from Colombia working here over 35 years.
Wow.
This is his last year. He's going to be retiring after we extended his contract 2 years already.
Okay.
His son works for us, and the shop foreman who just left, he's been working here since school. And we got technicians from Holland. We got Arubians that went to Holland for studies and came back, and we got Arubians that studied here now in Aruba itself.
Now, in the U.S., one of the biggest problems we have with technicians is the ability to find them.
Yes.
Is it the same shortage situation here?
It is the same shortage. I'm a true believer that in a couple of years, the technicians will be one of the most earners on the island, because they're very, very hard to get, especially good technicians, because you can get anybody can tell you a technician and they can't. And we do spend a lot of money on training. The more they train and the more they show us, the more they make. And we are just waiting for the training facilities to open back so we can send them abroad again to go study. I know Puerto Rico's now going to open. That's where we send our technicians for Ford.
Yeah.
The technician from Holland is going next month to the Netherlands to work on a training facility for Mercedes. But in the region, it's still closed.
Now, flat rate like in the U.S. or different?
Kind of. We do have them on a higher base.
Yeah.
The thing with flat rate is that it will work too fast, and we were to have too many comebacks.
Okay.
So we have them on a flat base, but the more hours they make, that flat base will increase.
Okay.
So there's a
sliding
base-
scale.
Yes, there's a scale. Yeah, exactly. So, but the scale won't be in our incremental hours, but incremental 10 hours or 20 hours incremental, and the more they make.
Okay.
Yeah.
Typical technician, 40, 50 hours?
No, a month they produce about 170 hours. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about right now about 80% productivity.
So when the customer buys the car, they introduce them to the service staff, and they include introducing them to the BDC. That's key. And they explain to the customer that the service advisor is always busy, and the BDC will be the person that they deal with. That gives the service advisor more time to get back to the customers in a timely manner. They also, the other takeaway is they spend money on training, and they incentivize their people who undergo training. And you know, they think outside the box. So they really have their stuff together there because they're thinking big picture. You know, when Mike was talking about big picture before, you can't look at the, you know, you can't pick up the pennies and step over the dollars. Every job is important. Sure, you might not make a lot of money on this job, but if you value the customer the same way on the little job, they'll come back to you for the big jobs. So I want to get just to a couple more comments here, and then we'll keep going. Wow, some great comments here. Thank you guys very much. Michael Barrett says, educating the customer on the importance of tire rotations and brake inspections during the routine oil change intervals to minor manufacturer intervals to prolong the life and wear of the tires, and additionally inspect the brakes. I mean, that's brilliant. I get mega life out of my tires because I rotate them every 6,000 miles regardless. And Jerry Davis says, the problem is the sales departments are not selling like they used to. They are order takers, and retention is not understood by most sales departments anymore. Well, how do you guys feel about that?
Sales departments don't build retention, service does. That's where retention comes from, the service department. So when you think about front end sales, they're now people. Let's turn the sale now. Fixed operations about let's keep the customer forever. So it's a completely different mindset. And reality is salespeople aren't centered on driving back and keeping business long term.
You know, something that I don't hear talked about very often anymore that we used to do, and I would think with all the technology that's built into pretty much every vehicle out there is probably pretty important. But, you know, we used to do new owner events, and, you know, we used to make it a full sit down dinner and break them up into groups, spend some time in the parts department, spend some time in the shop with our lead technicians, and then spend some time with our advisors. And it was a great opportunity to really answer a lot of questions that didn't get answered at the time of purchase, but also get them familiar with how we operate and how we can take care of them, and what's the value in doing business with us. And to Joe's point, you know, it is the service department's job to retain the customer, but are we getting enough opportunities to even meet these customers?
Right.
So, you know, I could see new owner events being a value add to any company that offers it, because it's how do you get people to know who you are without meeting them face to face? To do it at the time of purchase, Southern California, most of the cars are sold either at night or on the weekends when service is either closed or slammed.
Right.
And
Right.
neither one of those is a good thing.
And that expense, I mean, that's a marketing expense, right? What do we spend to market now? We spend, maybe not now because of this false economy that we're in, but before then we were spending what, $633 per sale to get a customer? Cost you a
Well,
lot
and
less.
all departments pay for the new owner event because it benefits everybody.
Everybody
Everybody.
benefits, right.
Right.
Mike Larkin from the hot Hartford area. I have a dealer from Virginia that used to take and honor coupons from Jiffy Lube and Valvoline. Neat strategy. It is a neat strategy. One I like even more than that is that on the board at my dealership, it tells you can shop around if you want to, but we'll save you the time because we already have. This is what Valvoline charges. This is what Jiffy charges. This is what Joe Blow down the street charges, and this is what we charge. They're not always the cheapest, but guess what? You just need to be in the game.
Competitive. That's called the Dare to Compare board.
Yeah.
I put that in all my marketing pieces for the last 10, 12 years. Put it on your website, have it on the service drive, have it anywhere where a customer can find it.
Yeah. And here's the great thing about that, right? I used to do that all the time. The customer, they know what the charges should be. Customers today are very, very smart. If you share with the customer something they already know that they didn't even ask you about, and that's the number that they got when they called before coming in, how much credibility have you built? I don't know about you, but I don't want to spend hours on the phone calling every Tom, Dick, Harry, and Jane to find out what things cost. If you've earned my trust in a couple of visits, you've pretty much stopped me from shopping further anywhere because I don't want to spend the time on the phone. We all know how well trained everybody is on the phone these days. And I don't care where you work, aftermarket, dealership, mystery shop your store sometime, whether you're a repair shop or a dealership. You'll be not so pleasantly surprised as to what you'll find. Michael Barrett says, never met a tech that could visually see the inboard brake pad with the wheels on the car. I don't think Superman could see through that. And Russell B. Hill says, true that, Mr. Barrett. Robert Allen Carvel, Walmart's Big Ten tires and many others sell expired DOT tires. That's why they are cheaper. Educate your customer. Learn the tire talk. Know what you are selling. There is nothing more valuable than education. And when you share that with your customers, I mean, it's huge. Jeff Bossy says, when I was a fixed ops director, any GP I made on tires was a win. Ring the bell on that one. We made 0% on tire purchases elsewhere. Oh, man, I love this.
Well, and to Jeff's point, there is gross available on certain tires. It all depends. It depends on your market. It depends on your competition. It depends on what kind of tire you're offering. Are you offering a good, better, and best selection? I'm the kind of guy that'll only put Michelin on my car, but my next door neighbor may want just the cheapest tire possible to put on their car. It's not for us to decide. We need to give the customer options.
Right.
Options, right.
And, and in some cases, so going back to what I said earlier, I mean, tires don't have to be no gross or low gross. In some cases, you will make gross on them, but the key is not to lose a sale. Losing a sale is like losing a customer, and nobody can afford to do that.
When you take the customer through the entire life cycle of service because they trust you and they come back to you, whether it's for a headlight bulb, a pair of wiper blades, or major service, they are 5 times more likely to buy their next car from you. Even the customer that's in your drive that didn't buy from you, which I think the average stat has been for a long time, 50% or so. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, gentlemen. But half the cars that come into your drive didn't buy from you. But guess what? The service department develops that relationship that through the life cycle of ownership, and the customers don't care, where they buy or service sometimes, they're 5 times more likely to buy from you. That's a lot less money than spending it to get new customers to come in. Conquest marketing is expensive and it's not always very effective. But if you can if you can train your own people, I mean, that's the best money spent. Russell B. Hill said, oh, hold on a second. I missed Joe's comment. Hey, team, sorry, so late. Got up early this morning. Yes, every Sunday. We know because we're on the same call with you, Joe. That's the SDL call. So reach out to Joe Chambers. Awesome, awesome, awesome fixed stops discussion we have every Sunday morning, 7 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Eastern time. And that's what, 5 a.m.
That's 5 a.m.
West Coast.
We've had that conversation, Joe.
Yes, we have.
Joe.
A wealth of knowledge. There's so many different perspectives you get on that show. It's a win-win for everybody. So Russell B. Hill says, love you, Mike. Randy Brankman, welcome. Says, tire sales are not today's money. They are tomorrow's money. Retention. And to that comment, I want to play. I had a meeting recently with a fixed ops. No, a general manager of a store that comes from a fixed ops background. And this is why the next time you're looking for a general manager for your store, this is why you may want to consider looking for somebody with a fixed ops background. Check this out.
Corey, in all my years in the business, the majority of general managers that run a store have come through the variable side of things. You, on the other hand, you started in variable and you ended in fixed. And now, as a former fixed ops director, you're running the day-to-day operations of a store. What do you think the benefit is to some other dealers out there to bring in somebody that has a fixed ops background?
So the benefit to a general manager with both front and back, but with a fixed ops, is that I can get my hands dirty 360 degrees in the store, which is key, especially in this market with limited inventory. I think it comes from repeat and referral business. So many more of our touches come from the service side than the sales side. When somebody buys a car from us, we may lease them a car again in another 3 years. They may send a friend or family or neighbor to us. When they come in for service, they're expecting a different experience, and when we offer them something above average, they're telling everybody they can. So repeat and referral business comes from service. I was lucky enough to spend my last 14 years in fixed operations, and my first dozen before that in the front end of the business.
So that's right to your point, Randy. We're talking about retention here, and what better way than somebody that's involved with the customers on that level. Ed Chipolowski, from a customer service perspective, the dealership is too expensive. How can that perspective be changed? Oh, that the perspective, perception is their reality. But gentlemen, why don't you share what you found, and I'm sure it's the same as what I found, with that statement. Are dealerships more expensive than some of the outside stores? And does it matter?
In most cases, it's not, but we just don't do and I don't say, when I say we, I'm talking generalizing. Obviously, there's great stores out there, but there's not enough stores that convey that information to their customer. I took on a dare about 10 years ago and lowered my prices to an independent shop's prices in my district. And it did absolutely nothing to lift my business. And I did it for 6 months, and it cost me a lot of gross profit. And my active customers are ones that benefited from that change. But I think when you build it out, going back to your Dare to Compare program that we talked about a little while ago, as long as you're shopping your competition, you don't have to be the cheapest, you don't have to be the most expensive, somewhere right in the middle. Be competitive, be fair. You're there to make money. Try to make this a quick story. I had a customer that complained back in 2006, I want to say, about my oil change price was $35 in 2006. That was my advertised price. That was my everyday price. That's what we sold it for. And she came in with 3 cars, her 2 sons and her. And the cashier asked her, "Were you happy with today's visit?" Well, it was so. Would you like to talk to the service manager? Brought him over to me, sat him down, and went through and said, she said, well, I feel like $35 is a little expensive. Okay, well, let's take a look at things. I said, are you paying more for gas in your car today than you did last year? Well, yeah, absolutely. I said, well, guess what? We're paying more for oil also. I said, did the service advisor go over the complimentary multi-point inspection we did on your vehicle? Yes, he did. I love that part. That's why I bring my car here, because I want to know that my car is safe. Great. Glad to hear that. I said, did you leave your cars with us or did you wait for it? No, we waited. I said, okay. I said, we have a pretty nice waiting lounge. Did you take advantage of it? Oh yeah, I love it. I love the big screen TVs, the free desktops, the coffee, the donuts, the bagels, all that stuff. Great. Which cars are yours? Oh, those 3 on the service drive that are pulled up over there. Great. I said, we did the exterior car wash. I hope that's okay with you. Oh yeah, I love that part too. I said, okay, so I said, and taking a look at the scheme of things, all the stuff that I just mentioned and looking at the facility here, I said, would you say that the owner of this dealership is entitled to make a profit? Well, of course, why would he even be in business? I said, okay, so at the end of the day, is $35 really that much for the oil change? She says, you know what? Nobody ever explained it to me like that. I feel so stupid now. Oh my God, I'm going to tell my friends, my coworkers, my neighbors, I love you guys. Thank you so much for spending the time with me. But that's a part where $35 in 2006 was kind of at the high end of an oil change, but we were worth it.
Thank you.
100% worth it. And once I explained it like that, it was good.
You know, there's an old saying that said, price is only an obstacle in the absence of value.
Bam.
Mike, you delivered value, so price is not an obstacle, right? And in the end, the dealership experience, the customer experience is less about money and more about the value proposition. What are we providing? And that's the connection with the client.
They can go and get maybe something done cheaper, but they won't have that experience. How many of us don't take the time because we're too busy to have that conversation with the customer? We know, even if they don't say something, we've been in it long enough to be able to gauge body language. We have an idea as to when somebody's leaving happy or not. And if they don't say something, maybe we engage them to make sure, right? I mean, this is basic stuff, right?
I used a thing in my marketing years ago. I called it TVC, trust, value, convenience. We need to build trust with customers. We need to show value to customers, and we need to be convenient as possible with customers. Easy words to say. The difficult part about that is that means different things to different people. So you do have to spend some time and know your customers. What's important to them? Some people it's time. Some people it's money. You know, it means different to different people. So you have to know your people. But those 3 words are the key ingredients, in my opinion, to build strong customer retention.
1000%. Russell B. Hill says rotations are worth it for sure. It's all about the long game, big picture. Cannot stress that enough. Big picture wins every time. And Joe Chambers says 10 out of 10 people knew we are in the repair business, but we drive 7 out of 10 away with poor business practices. I mean, that is 100% true. And you know what? It takes a leader to take that to heart and take ownership of it. We collectively, you, me, you, all of us, we're all in this business and we're all guilty of it to some extent. You know, it's true. Jeff Bossy says, consider getting prices for the customer from your competitors. Progressive does this with insurance, also gives you a chance to see if you're actually competitive. You always need to know where you are. And Ed Chipolowski says, Metaverse will be able to save dealership costs on transportation costs for training. we did it. Brian Kramer came on, and we did a great show on the metaverse. So you can go back in the thread and see some of the past shows. And the one that was the one that we talked about the metaverse. Great stuff coming. Dan Bear says training is key. I just visited 3 stores in Los Angeles. Each service team had 2 green pea service advisors. Training is always needed, and I'll add to that, should be continual. Joe, you want to chime in on that one?
Yeah, listen, this is the key. Training is the tactical necessity. It's the how-to, right? In the end, development is the key. Repetitive development and serving the development around the mission, the intention, the purpose of the company or the organization. Delivering that message comes from leadership, but it only works when everyone on the team is very clear about what the definition of success is.
Yeah.
That's the key, because you can go in and train the how-to all you want. But if it's not congruent with the mission of the team, and I think someone said last week, it is about the leader, right? The leader, the speed of the team is the speed of the leader.
Yeah.
If that leader buys into and delivers out clearly the intention, the purpose, the why, everyone else learns the tactical end, but they do it with intention. My why is what delivers the things that I learned in the tactical approach.
But that's
It's vital.
what you just stated. That's where training breaks down, because unfortunately, there are some people put into that leadership position that haven't been given the tools necessary to be a good leader. And unless we put more focus on them, you could train those advisors today and come back in 3 months or 6 months and nothing's done the way you
Right.
train. So it's a balancing act there, really. You got to cover both ends of the spectrum.
You've got to
Yeah, it does. It starts with the leader. I mean, you're right on point. You have to develop the leader to develop the people. And we don't invest, at least the typical automotive dealership doesn't invest time and money into development. They want to train. Training is it's a tactical thing. Here's how you do something. Development is teaching people how to lead, how to become better leaders. And that's why coaching and development in the context is so critical. It is. It's critical for that development.
I think Mike refers to this as building a bullpen and grooming your current team for future growth. Always look at big picture. Jerry Davis says, everyone plays a role in retention. And Roger Gutierrez, a lot of stores failed that sales to service handoff. Oh, that's a whole nother show unto itself. Russell B. Hill says, they sure do, Roger. And Steve Chesson, sales has nothing to do with customer retention anymore. They aren't retained. It's a temp job. The solution is service, BDC, and marketing. Steve is on point. There's a guy that has decades of experience. You can read you could look at some of his posts, and something that we come up with as new today, Steve will pull out a video from back in the day that he was already doing it before it was fashionable. So I tip my hats to that guy. If you're not connected, you definitely want to be. Joe Chambers says a plan needs to be in place in fixed ops to reach out to new purchase customers. Don't let variable dictate your relationship with the dealer's customer. Bam.
Yep. Well said, Joe.
Yep.
Phil Flores, it's my observation that most ASMs are concerned about the amount of ROs they write rather than delivering quality service and building long-term relationships for future business, which goes to Mike's previous point of why he hates hours per RO and ELR.
And the reason why is the leader that's the message they're pushing in that environment, right? The only message they're pushing is write more repair orders, create more hours, generate more revenue. Not about the client experience, not about ownership, not about teamwork, not about development and partnering with everyone. It's revenue centric only, and as it becomes revenue centric, that's the only focus, so that's the answer. That's the reason why that's happening.
And if you read Randy Brinkman's comment over there, first of all, I want to give full credit to Randy for opening my eyes at a Toyota meeting many, many years ago. He gave me my aha moment about ELR and hours per hour. And to his comment, if you're paying your advisors or you're holding them accountable for high effective labor rate or high hours per hour, tires are not going to be at the forefront of what they want to recommend. Same thing if you're paying your advisors on gross profit as opposed to sales, tires are not going to be high on their agenda. So, and if that's what you're doing, that's what you're doing, but you're going to have to put something else in place to motivate them to sell tires, because if it's going to affect their paycheck, unfortunately, they're probably not going to pay a lot of attention to it.
Yeah, no, that is 100% true. You got to look at big picture. Robert Allen Carvel, Phil Flores, service advisors state they can sell more service with less customers. Paying more attention to customer is invaluable. I always start, when I'm looking at something, I always start with the end game in mind, and I back into the action steps that I need to take to achieve that particular goal. If our goal is the ultimate customer service experience for the customer, because that really corrects all of the other ills, then this should be pretty academic on what we need to do. We can't focus on what Randy was talking about before. We need to focus on big picture. Every sale is important, whether it's a $2 sale or a $20,000 sale. Everybody should feel as though they are the king or queen that time when they're in.
But
to your point,
we are in the minority in that thing in the business.
Yeah.
The majority are still focused on gross profit percentages, effective labor rate, hours per hour, and like I said in the last show, I'm not here to say that you shouldn't know your numbers and you shouldn't watch your numbers, but in order to be successful in really retaining customers and not just talking the talk, you can't put the numbers first. You cannot. But we're in the minority, and that doesn't bother me in the least, because I believe what I believe, and I know what I've been able to do over my 30-year career, and I never followed it. I was very fortunate to work to dealer principals and dealer groups that understood what my philosophy was and gave me the support I needed to get through it. But unfortunately, with 20 groups out there and some of the bigger groups and just regular dealer principals, they chase the numbers, and that's their prerogative, and all the power to them.
And to the big picture thing, right? Back in the day when I ran my shops, whether it was a $1,600 job or a $2,000 job that was on the lift, that used to drive my techs absolutely crazy, because I would invariably have that customer that came in that was on their lunch hour, that was limited on time, that needed an oil change and didn't want to spend the day at that time at the dealership. They wanted in and out. My guys would go bullshit when I asked them to take that car that they're working on off the lift that was left with us for the day and to get that $20 oil change in, okay? They were like, are you out of your mind? I explained to them big picture. Well, guess what? That person saw what we did for them, appreciated it. We accommodated them on their terms for $20 job. We made them a priority. And guess what? They came in for everything that they needed. We'd have cars towed in on a Monday morning for stuff we didn't even work on. And they begged us to work on their cars. How many customers come into your shops today? Ask yourself that question honestly, or ask it of your staff. How many customers come in to beg you to do work on their vehicles that you don't do? How many do that? Mike, have you heard that to be like a big problem in our industry, Joe?
I mean, it happens, and you got to, you got to take it one customer at a time, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And as a leader, you set the example. I've parked cars, I've run cars through car washes, I've changed light bulbs on cars. I'm not a mechanic, and I don't claim to be one. But you jump in and take care of a situation if you can, because it's got to be handled.
Yeah.
What's the alternative?
And you never played one on TV either, right?
Correct.
Michael Barrett says, let's stop talking shit about tires not being profitable today. Tire price match guarantees and retention equals profitability. Alignment sales and brake sales matter. Yes. Big picture. Russell Hill, build value. Phil Flores, most dealers I used to support ran a 10 to 15% profit on tires, conducting local competitive shops, or maybe even searches. Ed Chipolowski, trust is most important. It's at least ahead of whatever's in second place, my friend.
Right.
Bruce Gamble, totally agree with Mike concerning building the relationship and giving TVC. Bruce Gamble says, how does a football team get better? Practice, practice, practice. And Michael Baird says, in the absence of leadership, the pay plan becomes the job description. Oh, that's a whole other show unto itself.
Yeah. Well said.
And Abel Aguirre, walk a mile in my shoes, know me, anticipate my needs, make my life simple, look out for me, reward me. If you want to build an amazing business or brand, look out for your customers. Chris, do howdy, y'all. I'm not up on my southern twang, but yeah, no, I mean, these are things that are so basic, but yet we tend to forget them. Whenever my wife has a problem with the computer or somebody calls me, they have an issue, reboot the computer. And that seems to fix the problem most of the time. We need to reboot our thinking on customer service.
Well, we overcomplicate the processes. If you look back to, for example, when I wrote service in the 80s, other than technology being added into the picture, not much more has changed. And technology, in my opinion, is there to support you and make your job easier. It's not necessarily for the customer, it's really to make your job easier. But how has the business evolved from the 1980s to 2022 as far as the service drive process?
For a lot, it hasn't.
Yeah, for many it hasn't, right?
It's still the basics.
Yeah.
Right.
You still got to do the basics, and you got to do them really well. Everything else comes along as a byproduct.
You said do it really well. That's the key, because when we think about basic, we think simple, right? That's the analogy. It's simple.
Yeah.
But really, to add clarity to it, it's fundamental, because fundamentals are really the primary principles of groundwork, right? This is a system that works. And when you understand the system and you follow the system, people and processes evolve within the system. So fundamentally, if we do the things right, everything else comes, right? That basic doesn't mean, it's simple. It just means fundamental. And to Mike's point, not much has changed, but if you don't do it well, you're not following the process. You're not doing it well, so therefore there is no basics, right? You're not fundamental. And I think we talked about this on Saturday. Not many viewers who want or need this conversation, they may not be on this call because they're not exposing themselves to a different set of rules or a different mindset or a different element of leadership that says, hey, you need to be aware of this because your fundamentals are broke.
And to the leadership point, for those out there that are leaders of your service teams, how much time do you spend in the drive? Are you the type of leader that's holed up in an office, or do you spend at least half your time out on the drive, touching the situations that come up, being involved with the customers, being involved with the advisors, with the techs, with the porters? Are you seeing everything from, as Corey Henderson pointed out, are you getting your hands dirty 360 degrees? Are you monitoring everything? I'm not talking about micromanaging. I'm talking about being involved in the process, because look, we all know when something is out of sync. And if you're leading, it's like leading an orchestra, right? When the person's doing their thing, they know the cellist does a certain thing, the trombone does something else, the violins do something else, but they're orchestrating that whole thing at the same time. They're looking at big picture and they're creating beautiful music. We can create beautiful music in our stores when we lead that way and we immerse ourselves in the drive.
It's a matter of observation. You need to be watching and you need to be listening. That's how you learn what's going on. You don't learn from reports. You don't learn by sitting.
Right.
You learn by getting out and moving around, whether it's on the drive, whether it's in the customer lounge, whether it's in the shop, whether it's in the BDC, wherever it might be. That's where you're going to learn the most.
100%. When you're in your office, your vision is narrowed. All you can see is what's in front of you, right? So when you get out to the drive, or you interact with your clients, or you're in the parts department, you're in the waiting room talking to your client, you get a different perception of what's really going on, right? You think this is my fundamental basics, right? Everyone's following the basics, and then you start interacting, as Mike said, observing. Now you really see what's happening. You get to see the client experience and understand it firsthand. It's vital. You got to get out of the narrow focus mindset of looking at documents and paper and metrics and all those other items.
Those conversations are key because they'll reveal things to you that you might not even be aware of. And those are things that you can then share with your team. The conversations that you have with your team and the conversations that you have with the customers, that's all information that you're going to tie together to improve that experience. I got a couple of comments. Randy Brinkman says, if employees work their pay plans, be happy. Be intelligent enough to design a pay plan that meets the results you wish, which is starting with the end game in mind. First, define purpose, then design.
That's right.
Simple is smart. Brilliant.
Start with the why, right? Start with the why.
Yeah. Jerry Davis says you need to see where the situations become an issue so that you can use them as teaching moments. You can't hear conversations from your glass towers. Wow. The comments have just been incredible. And that brings us to the end of yet another show. I was telling these gentlemen earlier, when I first started doing this, it was always, okay, how are we going to get to 60 minutes? How are we going to get to 60 minutes? And going into the third year of this show now, and just being blessed with the amount of talent, Joe, Mike, and all the other people that have been on the show and will be on the show, just now it's, how do we stay within 60 minutes? We have trouble with staying within 60 minutes. Sometimes it ends up being a second show like this one, because there's so much great information that's shared by my guests that come on and the people in the audience that participate, that add in, that ask the questions that need to be asked. Because sometimes somebody else might ask something that we're thinking about, maybe subconsciously, but we don't really talk about it. And when we get to talk about these things, it brings to the forefront that, hey, you know what that person experienced, I also experienced, but I never thought about it this way or that way. So my hope with the show is always that at the end of it, you're scratching your head on something that maybe you learned something new, you validated that you're on the right track, doing everything you can, or you might want to reach out to the guest, Joe or Mike. If you're not connected with them, they're tagged in the post. Click on, connect with them. They're happy to have a conversation with you, or myself. I work from home. I'm always up. If I'm awake, I'll take the call. So feel free. You'll always remember what you forgot to ask after you had the opportunity to do so. That was the old thinking, but today with the internet, it churns 24/7. So with that, thank you all. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you guys sharing your knowledge with the audience. And thank you all in the audience for contributing some great information. And with that, I wish you a safe and successful next week. And we'll see you next week on Sunday Night Live. Gentlemen, please stay on after the show. See you next week.